Hello there makers, it is Jo from Minerva and I'm here today to do a sew along of a bikini set. There has been a trend to sew your own swimwear and we have some great fabrics that you can do that with, and today I want to show you one of those fabrics, how to sew it and how to put together a bikini. The pattern that I'm using is a Jalie pattern. It's really great. It's got different options for the top and the bottom, so you can mix and match. And of course, the joy of making your own bikini is you can make the top smaller and the bottoms bigger, or vice versa, and you can really get the fit that you want. Jalie Gigi is a bikini pattern. It comes in 27 different sizes. So this pattern can be used for children and teens and adults. I really like that about Jalie Patterns. You trace off the size that you want and it's a really, really good value pattern if you make it more than once. You can make a bikini from age 2 up to US size 22. So that gives you for the girls, it gives you their height, but it also matches that with their bust and hip. And you also can do the same for the women's versions. So you can go from a US size 4, which is a 34 chest, up to a 52 chest. There's lots and lots of sizing information, quite a lot to get your head around, but when you can get the size that you want, it makes for a really successful sew. Okay, it's a sew along, so let's get sewing. If you've not used a Jalie pattern before, it's an A4 size. You have the picture cover sheet, all of the size information on the back. So this is where you will be choosing which view you make, which size you trace off, and any notions and fabric requirements. The sheets are really big, so I find it useful to cut the instructions away from the pattern pieces. That just means I'm using 2 big sheets of paper instead of one massive one. And depending on which view you want, you can find the pattern pieces. So I'm doing view A, so I've just circled any pieces that said view A. These are for the children's pieces, so I don't need those. I have found the pieces that I want, and I find it a bit easier on a multi-sized pattern to just highlight with a felt pen the one that I want to trace. Then when I put my tracing paper on, I won't accidentally start following another line. So I've got the centre front, the back piece, the front knickers, the back knickers, and the side front. And I've traced those off, but I'd like to keep my sheet whole because I'm making a swimsuit for a teen, just because it's nice and small and I can show you that easily under the machine. But I've kept all the other sizes intact so that I can possibly make one for myself. The last thing I did before I started to sew was I highlighted the bits of the pattern that I need. Because it's a multi-sized pattern, there are bits of instructions that you might need to leave out. So this bit is for view B. This bit is for the adult that makes a pocket to put a foam cup in. So it's tricky to follow unless you chunk out the bits that you need. So give the pattern a good read through, highlight the bits that you want. I've matched the number of that instruction with the picture, and now I can follow this set of instructions in the right order. I'm using one of our chlorine resistant activewear fabrics today. It comes in lots of different colours. I've chosen red so that you can see it easily on the screen. It's also great if you mix it with a pattern fabric. There's a selvage edge, so you'll be using that to help you find the grain. For the lined areas, I'm using a power net, which this is quite a light one. I'll list it below. It's like a sort of mesh. Comes in black and white. And this also has 2 different grains and stretch, and you need to match those with the grain of your fabric. Even though the fabric has 4-way stretch, it's not equal stretch. So in the cross grain, there's a greater amount of stretch than in the length grain. And when you feel it, that feels stronger, a stronger stretch, more elastane. And that one feels like a looser stretch. So the width stretch needs to go across your body. I'm pinning with silk pins because there's a high lycra content, so it bounces back with my other pins, so these ones are nice and fine. It doesn't take much fabric at all. You can cut swimwear flat if you want to sort of really make sure that you're getting your pieces accurate. If you use lots of pins, you can do it on the fold, but it's up to you. So I've laid out all my pieces. This is my strap piece as well, and I can now cut them out. You can cut out using dressmaking scissors, but you need really sharp ones so that you don't get a chewy and furry edge. I've got a small one because I do quite a bit of lingerie making, so I can get around those smaller curves more easily with that, or you can use a rotary cutter. I've got mats. If you've got one mat, it's great because you're working with quite a small area, so you don't need lots and lots of space. So you can see I've got the width stretch going across the knicker front, across the knicker back, across the centre front and across the side front. The back lining has a grain line on as well. You will also need to cut these out in a lining fabric. So observe on the pattern pieces, 2 main, 2 in lining. Swimwear patterns often have a smaller seam allowance, so just be careful where the notches are. You only need a very tiny snip, nothing that will go into your seam line. So you just need to make a really small mark there, or you could use a chalk or pen. Before you sew any swimwear fabric, it's a really good idea to have a little test. So I've got a little offcut from where I was cutting, and I've got a Mariflex thread in my machine, so I can use a straight stitch. If you've got a polyester sew thread, then you will need to use a lightning stitch or a zigzag stitch. And there's some information on using stretch stitch in our video here. I'm going to go ahead. I've got to make sure that my needle's fine. I've had this stretch needle a while, so I'm just going to have a test, and if it's not any good, I'm going to swap in for a new one. I've got a stretchy fabric, no skip stitches, and when I open it out, I'm not getting any breaks in the stitch line, and that's a good stitch length. So we're ready to sew. I'm making view A, which is the bra with the wider straps, but all the techniques that I show you today will be interchangeable with view A and B. Activewear fabric does have a right side and a wrong side. The right side is slightly shinier, so we're going to fold the straps in half. You can pin them if you want, if you've not sewn activewear fabric before, but again, you need to be pinning it pretty close to the edge because you don't want to snag the lycra in the fabric. The seam allowance for this whole pattern is 6mm, and that's quite small. So you need to make sure that you're not making it any bigger. If you make your seam allowance bigger, your swimsuit will be smaller all around. So we're going to sew that down the length. To complete the strap, we're going to put a piece of 2cm wide elastic inside this strap. So the strap is still wrong side out. I'm going to cut a piece of elastic the length of the strap. And I'm going to zigzag it to the seam allowance so that when I turn it the right side out, there will be elastic inside the channel. Okay, we're going to turn these straps now the right way out. I turned one out by hand, and it did make my hand ache trying to turn that through. So I've just sewn across the end of the second one, and I'm going to use my tube turner. To start to sew, you will use the notches to put the pieces together. So make sure you've marked those, but you haven't cut too far into the seam allowance. And you're going to make one outer with the main fabric, and then you're going to make another with the inner. I find it useful to lay out the pieces in the formation that it's going to be so that I don't get any of the wrong sides together. So this has got the shiny side up. That's the right side of activewear, and there are these tiny little notches to match up. And I can start to pin. Now you can pin this together. If you've got good machine handling skills, then you might be able to just simply sew and go. Once you've made the outer and the lining, now is the point, if you're hopping on the pattern where you're putting a foam cup in, you need to add your extra pieces of lining here with the little openings in the pockets to put the foam cups in. I'm just making the teen version so that I can show you the elastic techniques and how it comes together. With your lining and your outer right sides together, we're going to pin and sew the neckline only. So I've marked the centre line of the lining. That's to do the little bit of ruching later. And again, you're going to be wanting to pin near the seam allowance, or you could use clips. This needs to be a 6mm seam allowance, and that's important because the elastic we're going to put around there is 6mm, and I'll show you the elastic technique in a moment. Here's the elastic application, and it's kind of best to show you on a sample piece, and then you'll know that every time I'm applying elastic to the top of the bikini that I'm using this technique. So this is my seam that I've sewn, and I can do this one in a different colour for you. So that's my stretchy seam there that you'll see on the outside of the fabric. And this is why your seam allowance needs to be 6mm, because then you're going to run your elastic along the seam allowance and zigzag it in place. So you've got the stretch along that seam. From the right side, this is what you would see, the elastics in between those layers. And the final part of the process is to understitch with a zigzag. So if this is the right side of the fabric and this is the lining, you zigzag understitch that elastic and all of that seam allowance to the lining, and then everything can hang with all of that firmness at the back, but it is still stretchy. So if I'm applying elastic now to the neckband and the arm cyc, that's the technique that I'm using. Because we've only sewn the neck so far, then that's the first place that we're going to put the elastic. So you can pin it if you want, or you can hold it, and you're going to put the elastic around the neckline. Make sure you've got plenty of elastic around that centre point, because if you pull it into a sort of V, you'll pucker up the centre front of your bikini. So make sure you've got plenty of elastic going around that curve all the way up to the other side. You just need to put a gentle stretch on there. If you put a really strong stretch, your bikini will be really puckered. Depends what fit you want. If you've got a smaller bust, you might want to pull that a little bit tighter to pull it in so it doesn't gape. Or if you've got a larger bust, then you might want that to be under less tension so that your bust can fill the space. Once the elastic's on, we then flip it over and understitch. Make sure you're understitching to the right place. So you want to make sure that your zigzag is on the lining side. If you've got a white lining like me, then you might want to swap the colour of your stitch. It's up to you. I'm happy to put some red thread along there, but if you want to change to white Mariflex, you can do that too. Once you've understitched the neckline, you're then going to use the same technique around the arm sike, so pin it together, sew the arm sike, and then add the elastic in the seam allowance. And this time you won't be able to understitch quite so far. You won't be able to get up to this bra strap point, so it's going to be from the bust seam down to the end, and you're going to do that on both sides. Next, we're going to take the straps and attach them to the tops of the bikini. It needs to be inside out so that you can sew it from the wrong side. With the bikini, with the outer facing you, wrong side facing you, you're going to slip the strap in between the two layers. And so that you get the seam of the strap on the correct side when you wear it, you want to have the right side of the strap touching the right side of the fabric. You're going to wiggle it into that strap area. If this area is too big, you can always now at this point just make this a slightly narrower opening. Then from the wrong side, you can sew across the end a couple of times for strength. The straps are attached. Now, I've put a 3-step zigzag around my bikini. This isn't in the pattern, but I'm just struggling to keep it flat while I show you other parts of the bikini. So I want to do the bottom band, but this kept curling over. So I've done a 3-step zigzag along the front and arm sike. It's a really nice finish, actually. I mean, I've done it for a video purpose, but I wouldn't rule that out if I was making one for myself, and that will be ruched in the middle. So once you've got your main bra pieces together, we can take a look at putting on the bust band. There are 2 versions here, one with 2 clips on the back and one with 1, and that will depend on which back piece that you cut. The views are shown on the pattern. You will need a piece of 2 centimetre elastic, and this is quite crucial to the bandwidth fabric that you have cut, and that's going to go along the bottom raw edge of the band. And then we're going to fold it up once, fold it up again, and that will cover the raw edge of how we've joined the band to the bra top. If you want to use a different elastic, something with more support, if you're making a bigger size, then you might need to alter that band size. So this non-roll elastic is 2.2 millimeters. So you'll need to make your band width about 4 millimeters wider, otherwise it won't stretch to that marking where you need to roll it to. So I've got a 2 centimetre elastic, and I'm going to zigzag it to the raw edge. You can add a little bit of ease there if you want to, or you can just put it on flat, and then you're going to roll it up once, roll it up twice, and pin in place. You'll be applying this with a zigzag. If you've used a 3-step zigzag on the rest of the garment, then it's probably best to do the same there as well. At the end, if you're making the same view as me, you will need to roll the elastic over and just fold in the raw edge. Pin it in place and make the rest of that band nice and neat with all the raw edges folded in. You can now sew along this bottom edge. Once you've sewn it, it should still be stretchy and not stretched out. And then the 2 back clasps can be added at the back. You might need to try it on at this point. Check your strap lengths. Attach the shoulder straps to the back of the bikini. I'm going to zigzag those on, covering the raw edge at the back. We're getting near the end now, so we're going to put the clasps on the back of the bikini top. You can use a traditional bikini clasp like this one. You'll need 2 of those, and you'll put 1 each end. The opening needs to be 2 mil wide, or you can use a hook one. So you get this in a bra kit sometimes. So you've got a hook at one end, you apply that to the strap, fold it over and sew it in place, and then you need to make a little hook shape on the other side to close the clasp. That also works on the non-elasticated piece as well. Once you've got them on, you should still get lots of strength through the elastic, and the clasps hold the bikini closed. You can wear it like this, or you can do the little ruche front detail. You'll need to find the centre front of the bikini, get a little piece of the clear elastic, pin it at one end, and then sew it under the machine, stretching the elastic. We've got through a few threads now, so we need to pull those through to the back so that we can tie them off just at the back. And your bikini top is finished. When you're wearing it, all of that lining will roll to the inside once you've got your body shape inside the bikini top. Now it is time to start making the bottoms. They're a lot faster, and if you are using the pattern, you'll have used these techniques already in the bikini top. There are two pieces, a back piece and a front piece with lining. You could line the back if you wanted to, but this has just got a piece for the front. You're going to put the front piece over the back piece along the gusset edge and sew that at 6mm. And then you can join the lining onto that seam as well. Just check that when you fold it over, the seam is on the right side. It should all be enclosed inside the bikini bottoms. Join up the raw edges, and you're going to machine base this with a zigzag. That means that you've got one piece of fabric that acts all together. Next, we're going to put on the elastic. So around the legs, you'll be using the 6mm elastic and giving it a little bit of tension and taking it around the curve and all the way around the back. When you stretch the elastic, try not to stretch the fabric at the same time. It can be tempting because you're putting quite a lot of pressure on your fingers there. And because we've got two hands, we tend to sort of do the same with the other hand. So let the fabric relax. Stretch just the elastic. But not the top. If you stretch the knickers, then you'll get a wavy frilly edge, and what you're actually trying to achieve is a slightly ruched edge. So if you're getting this, then you're stretching the fabric, not the elastic. Now we can look at finishing that leg edge. So we're going to turn it over again and zigzag. So you'll see a zigzag from the right side. You can use an overlocker, so you can overlock the edge. And again, just turn it to the right side. So there's the overlock one, there's the zigzag one. And that folds down 6mm. You will have an eased in edge along the elastic. If it's frilly, you've done it wrong, unfortunately. So make sure it's pulling in the leg fabric. And now we're going to join the sides. Match up the sides, and for the first time, I'm going to use a different seam allowance. So it's 1.5 centimetres here. And that means we can put on the strings. That wider seam allowance allows us to make a casing. So we're going to pin down the edges and sew as close to the edge as we can with a straight stitch. Make up the optional ties, and you're going to put those inside that casing. So go from the leg edge up to the waist and then back down so that both strings come out at the leg edge. Make sure they're level, and then you're going to sew 2 centimeters down from the waist. That will hold the ties in place. Now we can cut off this loop, so try and roll down as far as you can so that they're not sticking out the top. And then it pulls up for a little ruche side. You can knot off the ends. You can tie them in a bow or have them loose, and you need to do the same for the other side. If you want to change up the fit and comfort of the bottoms for your own body shape, you don't have to do the ones that are on here. You could add a wide elastic if you wanted to. You could try a soft waistbanding elastic, and you could zigzag that on. So this comes in 2 depths. I think this is the 2 centimeter one. There's one that's 3.8, so you could put a wide elastic straight on. You could use fold over elastic. You can put this one on. This is a narrower one, so it depends. You could try it on at this point and see if they come up high enough for your comfort. Obviously you're not going to get the stretch tension, and then you could change how you put the waistband on depending on which elastic you'd like and the depth that you would like your finished bottoms to be. I hope you have enjoyed today's sew along, and I hope it has inspired you to have a go at making your own swimwear. It really is a great way of getting swimwear that fits you in all the right places. All of the products that I've used are listed below. So the elastics are there, that clear plastic elastic. It's 6mm wide, and that's pretty crucial to the pattern. If you try and use something different, you will make bulkier seams. You will have a different size outcome at the end if you use a wider elastic. So all of those are listed below for your ease. We would love to see anything that you've made, so do make a free account with us, share your makes and inspire other Minerva makers. You can join the craft club too, where you will receive discounts throughout the year. We would love to see what you've been making, so do share and do call again soon for more sew-alongs, tips, tricks, inspiration and new pattern releases. Thank you very much for watching. Do call again soon.